We have a new world record to report. $600,000 lower than the last sale. You know, a lot of people like to tell me that Batman is better than Superman. Well, I disagree because, you know, Batman's first appearance, Detective Comics 27, when that loses money, it goes down by $400,000. But first appearance of Superman, Action Comics #1, when that one loses money, it goes down by $600,000. Ipso facto, Superman greater than Batman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this one, we got a little bit of a market report, an interesting one to talk about. Action Comics #1 in a CGC 3.0, the featured book of the Platinum Heritage Auction, just went up for sale, except there's only one problem. It didn't actually sell. The reserve was not met. Fake news, fake video, fake sales swag. It's actually pretty crazy to talk about this because I think in all the years I've been doing, you know, my YouTube and covering different auctions, I don't think I've ever seen a book at this level be, you know, a featured, you know, mega grail going up for sale where the reserve was not met. In fact, you can see it right in front of you. If anyone has $960,000 to spend on a first appearance of Superman, you can buy it right now on Heritage's website. And so in this video, I wanted to go over this quote unquote sale of this Superman, talk about how it went for under $600,000 less than the previous record in grade for this book. Ask ourselves the question of why we think that that was actually the case. Also talk a little bit about reserves on auctions. I mean, reserves on auctions is like kissing your sister. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that you would actually put it on there. In fact, I personally, you know, if I see a reserve on an auction, it makes me not want to bid. We'll check in on what the community also has to say about this book, and then we'll do a little bit of a market report on some of the other cool books that sold in this auction just yesterday. But of course, before I get into it, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I appreciate it. Helps support the channel, doing those things. But let us get into this video, and there you see it, Action Comics #1. Now, I actually did a live stream yesterday, and actually I had the sound off at the time, so it wasn't really clear to me that this didn't actually meet the reserve. I actually thought that, you know, the final sale for this one ended up being at $960,000. That's at least what it had showed when, you know, the hammer closed. And if we were going to take that at face value, well, then that would have been a $600,000 loss compared to the previous sale, where you can see here, December 15th of 2021, this book sold for $1.6 million on a Comic Connect auction. Now, there was a lot of conversation. I made this post on my Instagram to sort of ask the community. I think you and I both know like what the deal is here. You know, we've been talking about, you know, market corrections for a long time on the channel. We do our comic book index, and even the mega grails are still feeling the effects of, you know, the current economy, and are still feeling, you know, the froth that is getting pulled out of it from that 2021 comic book boom. But I did still make the post to kind of ask the community, you know, sort of what they thought about this. And here are some of the interesting answers I wanted to share with you guys here. Shout out to Reese, says Rare Comics. He says, almost a milli for a faded Action 1. Sounds good to me. Now, that was a little bit of the conversation where, you know, how do we feel about this copy in particular? Do we think that it looks, you know, a little bit faded? I actually did say that in my catalog preview video. I said that the colors on this were a little bit desat, but do we think that 600K off is enough of a reason to not pick up this book? I'm not really so sure. I mean, this sort of feels like to me, you know, it's just an entirely different market that we live in, you know, today than that of 2021. Dan here says, it didn't even hit the reserve price. Someone can buy it right now for $960. Mighty then follows up and says, yeah, I thought it was crazy. Not a lot of millionaires are ready to pay up right now. If I had the cash, I would pay $900K. I mean, you know, maybe you can make an offer. I mean, apparently right now you go over here and you click the make it offer button. There is another offer pending, and the suggested price is $768 to $960. Can you guys actually imagine if they accepted this offer of $968? In fact, I'm not really sure what happened here, being that, you know, this was an auction that went up and the reserve was not met, but then now they'd be willing to accept offers for this book, like to the tune of even less than what was in theory the underbid. I mean, it's just a little bit confusing to me, and maybe if you guys actually have a little bit of clarity on that, let me know in the comments section. Nerdy Girl says, there are only so many buyers at that level. Eye appeal also comes strongly into play here, and with a faded copies, buyers simply won't go as hard. Copies will be put away, and we'll see a lull with none available, and one comes up, and we'll be saying, wow, did you see how strong that got sold, in my opinion, of course. Now, I kind of agree with what Nerdy Girl is saying here. I actually said this in not only this last auction when I was doing my live stream, but the previous auction as well. I talked about how like a lot of these premier books, like the Detective Comics 27s, or, the Action Comics #1s, or the Superman ones, or the Batman ones, those are the types of books where you have, more the casual rich person who wants the best of the best, and they come in and they buy that $1 million comic book. And I think a lot of those people that maybe were in it and paying more attention during 2021 has sort of tuned out. I mean, there's a lot, better places you could be putting your money right now. And the people who are still in it, the people who are still buying, expensive books in these sessions are basically, your hardcore collectors. And the hardcore collectors may not have this type of money, but they have maybe this type of money. They want this sort of book, which is like your favorite comic, like a Tech 31, a CGC 40, one of the greatest covers of all time, $174,000. Maybe this was picked up by a dealer that is doing pretty well, that is able to kind of, scrounge together some books and make a purchase like this actually happen. That's kind of what I think. I think we have, more of the hardcore audience, less of the comic book tourists. And so the books that seem obvious or are the best of the best are actually, ironically, not doing as well as maybe some of the more insider books like the Tech 31s or the Suspense 3s or books of that nature. Blue Chip says, I don't think that it's sold. Wasn't that the reserve price? Blue Chip, you are correct, sir. This is not actually going to be a recorded sale. But again, I don't actually know what is more embarrassing in a way. Like, is it more embarrassing that this sold for $600,000 less? Or is it more embarrassing that somebody put a reserve, bid on it and they didn't hit their reserve? I mean, I feel like that's kind of even worse, especially when you have Heritage auctions doing this. Like, it sort of feels like, Heritage is the premier auction house. This is where, the biggest comics go for sale. And the fact that we couldn't hit the reserve, I mean, what does that say about the state of the market as a whole? Raleigh Comic Book Collector says 2022 was also a height of comic book insanity. Even higher caliber collectors got caught up in the COVID buying boom in some cases. Yeah, I agree with that. Semperfi says when it was first listed on Heritage, there was a greater note that mentioned Color Touch. Then that note randomly disappeared, which is odd. That mixed with the reserve led to a failed auction. I didn't actually know that it had the note of Color Touch. If that's actually true, that is something that could be really concerning. I mean, if you're going to spend $1 million on a comic book, you better be sure that there's no funny business going on. MSG Comics says, damn. John Comic Hoarder says, seeing the people in the hobby that make this business come up with excuses is fun to watch. Damn. Makes me remember the 2021 days when they all balked at people who said the overinflated prices were not sustainable. As a collector, I'm happy to see the overcorrection of the market. I mean, this is something we always talk about, in the various, index videos I put together whenever I do market stuff. I personally just think it's funny. I'm just here with my popcorn, reporting on this stuff. And I just always have a little bit of a laugh. But I realize, there are people who are fans of certain books or certain, ages. How many times have I talked about people saying like, oh, Golden Age, is better than Silver Age, or like the modern collectors, like, think vintage is stupid. And people have emotional attachments to characters in books, and they like to see their books win, and they like to see other books crash. If Action 1 crashes, everybody's like, well, I mean, it's just, the market. But then, like, if Ultimate Fallout 4 Djurjevic variant crashes, those same, vintage collectors are like, what a stupid book. This is just how people are. They're very, very tribal with their books. I personally just think all of this stuff is funny. It's entertaining. It's fun. And that's what it should be. It's comic books, guys. It's comic books. But what do you guys make of this quote unquote non-sale and this book not hitting its reserve? Like, in a way, do you guys think that it's kind of weird that happened? Like, I just think that this is weird. I've never seen anything like this, in the time I've been covering these auctions. And even at 960,000, like, I don't know, like that's still a pretty big number. Like, who was the seller? Like, why were they, so adamant? I'm not actually sure what the reserve price was. I heard speculation that it was $1 million. So it's like, you were just one bid away from accepting an offer. It's like, it's kind of like, maybe there's a big lesson here where it's sort of like, take the money and run sometimes, even if you don't get the top dollar, if you're ever selling your comic books, it's sort of okay. You know, it's okay to sort of let it go. I mean, I don't know when the seller of this book actually picked it up, but if they picked it up any more than 5 years ago, I mean, they basically have made money on this thing, guaranteed. But before we wrap up the video, let's talk about a couple other interesting sales. I showed you guys this one already, the Detective Comics 27. This is the garage sale copy. Do you guys remember when I did that video talking about how this book was found at a garage sale and then it was sent into CGC? Well, we finally had it go up for auction and it did very well. $312,000. Nothing to sneeze at right there. I mean, while a lot of the books in this auction took some haircuts, a lot of the books also sold very, very well. So, you know, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. That's kind of the market that we're in right now. But a 0.5 copy, you know, with wrong back cover, selling for more than a restored book that actually went up for auction in the same one, where I think the restored one was like a 5.0 that sold for 200 something thousand. Just goes to show you, you know, people really want their blue labels. But Action Comics #1 in a 0.5, if you guys remember, sold for 400,000. So that still is kind of the go-to book when it comes to the ultimate grails. A lot of other big sales right here. I already talked about the Tech 31 selling for 174,000. That is a lot of money. We had the Tech 29 selling for 120,000. That is also a lot of money. Captain America Comics #1, 5.5 selling for 168. A little bit softer right there. The Batman #1, 108. Not bad, but a little bit softer as well. We had the AF-15 in a 6.5 selling for 90,000, also a little bit softer. Superman #1 in a 1.0 selling for 84,000, also a little bit softer. So again, a mixed bag, you know, depending on the type of book. This All-Star Comics #8, first Wonder Woman was soft. Detective Comics 38, this first appearance of Robin was soft. This X-Men 94 was huge, surprisingly. There was actually a few Bronze Age books that sold really, really well in this auction overall. This Hero for Hire #1 was a little bit soft compared to, you know, the previous sales. This first appearance of Captain Marvel was soft compared to its previous sales. But then you have a book like this, Batman 251, classic Neil Adams cover, $39,000 in a CGC 9.8. That is a record for that book. So I don't know, guys. Bronze Age was killing it in this auction for some reason. You had this ASM #8, first appearance of the Living Brain, you know, top of census, 38,000. That's a record for that book right there. You had Action Comics 23 sell really well, 33,000. You had this giant size X-Men #1 in a 9.8 selling for 33,000. That's actually a really strong sale for that book. Captain America 3 in a 3.0, 30,000, very strong for that book as well. So again, you know, a total mixed bag. You had the Star Wars #1 price variant. This one was a really interesting sale, 28,800. That's a good number for that book. Definitely a good number for that book with the variant price. So I don't know, guys. It was kind of a mixed bag, and you know, some up, some down. But, you know, a lot of cool books going up for sale. Oh, we had this one right here on the live stream. Eerie Comics #1 selling for $15,000. That was a steal price right there. And you know why it got stolen? Because it was in a CBCS label. I mean, there is a little bit of foxing, there is a little bit of tanning. It's probably not an 8.5. But even if you know, pulled this thing down to like a 6.5, 15,000 is still soft at that price point. This is a really one that, you know, what do we say, fell off a cliff, so to speak. So a lot of other cool books right here. And then you have, of course, everyone's favorite book, Ultimate Fallout #4, the Jurjevich variant, back in the 5-figure club, $10,200. So not all comic books go down in value. If anything, Miles Morales had a better day than Superman. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was me doing a little bit of a recap of the Action Comics #1, quote unquote, sale or non-sale, I guess is what we're going to call it. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about this book not hitting its reserve price? How do you guys feel about reserve prices in general? Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I'll probably do another live stream tomorrow for the rest of session 4 and 5, so be sure to look out for that. That's all I have for this one. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next video.